Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's Saturday, October 29th, 2016. Game 4 of the World Series about to get underway in a little more than an hour. We're going to preview Game 4, but first, we're going to review what was interesting about Game 3 yesterday, the first Chicago Cubs World Series game in Chicago in 71 years. Remember, this World Series, it began on October 25th, 2016, a date with 71 numerology, the same day the 71st season of the NBA began, where the defending champions are from Cleveland, just like where Game 1 of the World Series was played. Yesterday, the first run came in the 7th inning, 7-1. The Indians came into the World Series 7-1 in the postseason. They're saying the temperature at game time is 71 degrees today in Chicago. Yesterday, they said it was 54. Yesterday was a date with 54 numerology. Baseball in gematria equals 54, 54 games, or 54 outs in a full 9-inning game, which yesterday's game was. Comical 71 degrees. So we're going to preview Game 4, first Game 3, and then at the end of this video, we're going to talk about two other things. The death of Jose Fernandez, and today's headlines about him being on cocaine and alcohol at the time of death. And also, we're going to talk about the second baseman, Kipnis, for the Indians, who grew up as a neighbor of Steve Bartman and a fan of the Cubs. What are the odds? So check this out. Yesterday, in my Game 3 preview, I talked about how the starting pitcher for the Indians, everything was scripted perfectly for him to start. I did not know that his father, who was ill, was going to be in attendance. The story was his father's passing. He gets to see his son pitch in the World Series before he goes. It was the touching, emotional storyline for the game. As I pointed out, yesterday, October 28th, 2016, a date with 74 numerology. The name Joshua in gematria equals 74, just like Masonic. Freemasonry is what runs your media, runs pro sports, scripts them by the numbers as I'm exposing. Real quick, I want to tell you more about 74 and then show you the tribute he got in his pitch count to his father yesterday. So here's what you need to know about the name Joshua. It is the English translation of the name Jesus, which is a translation from the Greek word Yeshua. Greek's what the Bible was first retranslated in. So yesterday, it was yesterday now, October 28th, 2016, yesterday, they opened the tomb of Jesus. They hadn't done this for centuries. So they tell us. Yesterday, a date with 74 numerology. The Greek spelling of Jesus equals 74, Joshua 74, Jesus 74, Cross 74, Messiah 74, Gospel 74, Lucifer, occult, Jewish, Masonic. Out of the 50 states, only one sums to 74. It's Oregon, the 33rd state. Most people say Jesus crucified on the cross at age 33. You know, there's a new Hollywood movie out called, I want to say it's called Risen. That's what it's called, Risen. And it's about Jesus' return in 33 AD at age 33. It begins with Jesus on the cross. Anyway, only the 33rd state sums to 74. Keep in mind, holiday equals 74, Independence Day equals 74, 7/4, United States of America, 4th of July, 4th day, 7th month. In the Quran, the English translation of Muhammad is 74. Special number to the occult, 74, gematria 74, English 74. Gematria is the practice of coding numbers into words. If you use the reduced method, alphabetic order equals 74. We're about to celebrate Thanksgiving. If you didn't know, George Washington celebrated the first Thanksgiving as a national holiday. And then 74 years later, it was made an official annual holiday. 74 years later. Again, holiday 74, Independence Day. By the way, October's the only month with 33 gematria. October 33. I point out that October and Crucified have the same gematria as well, too, 78, which is interesting. So anyway, just to establish the significance of our language, these numbers, this system, Freemasonry, check this out. Josh Tomlin got 58 pitches yesterday. He went 4.2 innings. Remember, Freemason equals 42. New Testament equals 42. The New Testament begins with the 42 generations to Jesus. Special number to the Freemasons, 42. He had 58 pitches. 58. And why is that so interesting? Because Father equals 58, like secret society, like Freemasonry. How much you want to bet Josh Tomlin and his father are Freemasons? I'd bet you anything, and I would be right. Freemasonry is what runs your sports. It's why so many of these athletes keep the hush-hush about what's going on. This is a gang, a network that's been with this nation since the beginning, that's older than this nation, that's worldwide. The things I'm showing you, they go on in other parts of the world. It's why English is being spread as the one world language. The name Josh Tomlin in Pythagorean gematria is 45, like Wrigley, like Illinois, like Major League, like Cubs. Think about it. First pitcher at Wrigley for an away team in a World Series since 1945, and back then it wasn't even named Wrigley. Josh Tomlin, his whole life for this moment. Notice the hits were 8-5. Hendricks, the opposing pitcher, had 85 pitches. The reflection of 58 that Tomlin had. 85-58. The divisors of 85 summed to 108. Again, it's been 108 years since the Cubs won the World Series, 1908. Next year will be 108 seasons. Could be next year. They're under the curse of the Billy Goat. Billy Goat equals 103 win season. The Cleveland Cavaliers finished their season in Game 7 on their 103rd game of the year. And again, 71, the starting pitcher last night, his full birth name, Joshua Aubrey Tomlin, equals 71. Cleveland came into the World Series 7-1 in the postseason. The first game of the World Series played on a date with 71 numerology. It's been 71 years since 1945 when the Cubs were in a World Series. Last night, the first run came in the 7th inning. 7-1, the way it looks. You know, another 71 tribute last night. His full name right here, Joshua Aubrey Tomlin with the gematria of 71. Born to be the starting pitcher of that game. And his team getting a big win. Trying to break a curse of their own. Cubs haven't won since, or not Cubs, Cleveland Indians have not won the World Series since 1948, 68 years earlier. The date numerology for Game 1 of the World Series, the 71st season of the NBA began that day. Cleveland Cavaliers, defending champions, 71st season beginning on a day with 71 numerology. You don't think they're scripting this stuff by the numbers? Notice that when I first wrote this morning, the temperature was 67, and then now at game time, they're bumping it up to 71. Isn't that funny? Don't tell me they don't just want to put these numbers before your eyes. What's interesting about 67 is Cleveland Indians equals 67, and the day the World Series began was the day that left 67 days left in the year. Indians with 94 wins on the season. Again, the Cubs got their 94th win in their 147th game. If you write out 94 as a word, it sums to 57 and 147. If you write out World Series, it sums to 57 and 147, just like if you write out 94. Cubs got their 94th win in their 147th game. World Series equals 147. Terry Francona's 57 years old, the manager of the Indians. That other World Series number. Indians also had 67 losses this year. So Game 4 in gematria sums to 41. So does John Lackey. John Lackey starting for the Cubs. That name, Lackey, doesn't it just seem like such a bad name? Lack. We'll see what John Lackey does tonight. Today's date has World Series numerology, 75. What I am interested in is it's been 71 years since the curse of the Billy Goat. It was Game 4 of the World Series in 1945 where the curse of the Billy Goat originated at. That's where Billy Sionis brought his goat to the game, which he bought a ticket for, but he was kicked out because the goat smelled so bad. October 22nd, 1970 is the day Billy Sionis supposedly died. Remember, when the Cubs clinched the World Series, it was October 22nd, 2016, the 46-year anniversary of his death. And they told the story of Billy Sionis dying October 22nd, right at the start of the ninth inning, or just at the end of the eighth, one of the two. But they emphasized how it was 46 years to the day. Again, Chicago equals 46, Chicago Cubs equals 46. And again, the Cubs didn't win yesterday, Game 3, and the reason I gave the edge to them was because Game 3 in Gematria connected to 46. So I thought the Cubs were going to win a big symbolic game yesterday. If they lose tonight, I'm going to be worried about them coming back, and we're going to talk about why in just a moment. But tonight is the night, Game 4, where once upon a time the curse of the Billy Goat began. So if the Cubs are all about breaking it this year, which is what I predicted in spring training, and I'm still thinking is going to happen, tonight would be symbolic to win. If they lose, they're going to be down 3-1 like the Cavs. It won't be over, but I'll tell you why it could possibly end in Game 5 if the Cubs do get down 3-1 tonight. Remember, I have a prediction, but this is ongoing research. So I always try to present the full perspective for people who are trying to learn. For those of you who come here and don't understand my work, this might be above your pay grade, your intelligence. I'm doing something that was never before done in the world, decoding sports and showing how they're scripted and making pretty accurate predictions based on the amount of time I've worked with it. Again, this is something that's never been done before. And you've never seen anyone in your lifetime make as many accurate predictions as I have in the period of time I've been doing it. And the thing is my work keeps getting better and better. So where do you think it's going to be 3 years from now? You got to have the proper perspective in life. Perspective's everything. So many people have the wrong perspective about everything. Today's date, it's a date with 21 numerology. Again, Illinois is the 21st state. I was thinking the Cubs were going to go up 2-1 as a tribute to Illinois. That didn't happen. Today they could even the series at 2-2. 22 is the master builder number. Master builder number in Gematria sums to the same thing as World Series as well. So it could be symbolic, bringing it to 2-2 in this game, Game 4, connected to the curse of the Billy Goat. And did you see the 7th inning last night? Bill Murray, Bill Murray, Billy Goat, Billy Sionis, one offensive player on the Cubs team with facial hair, and he has a goatee. The guy who came back from a fully torn ACL in 6 months, who has a beer gut. You guys know that world-class athletes can't come back from a torn ACL in a year's time. This guy came back in 6 months. Looks like he hasn't missed a day. Probably because he's been taking batting practice at the Cubs facility all season with the gang of players that know they play in a scripted league that's no different than the WWE. For all of you who are clueless as to why they don't talk about it, why don't you look at their salaries? And for those of you who respond with, well, what about the guys who make $300,000? How much money do you make? Wouldn't you like to make $300,000 playing baseball? That's still a lot of money. Today's date also has 55 numerology, a number connected to Chicago Cubs. Date with 39 numerology, a number that I've been talking about is being coded on the World Series. Somebody this morning said, hey, Zach, you've been talking about 39 on the World Series. Did you notice the initials of Cleveland Indians? C, the third letter, I, the ninth. That's a good thought. So here's John Lackey. Just had his 38th birthday. Remember, Murphy equals 38. The name of the goat had 38 gematria. Curse of the Billy Goat, Murphy. The word Jew equals 38. Wall Street Journal just said the Chicago Cubs are the team of the Jews. I've been telling everybody for 3 years that Chicago, Illinois is the Zionist Jew Mecca. Zionist equals 112. Here we are in the 112th World Series. The Zionist Jews like to see people suffer, though, so it would make sense that they would make their baseball team a loser. Constantly hurting and disappointing people. John Lackey, his name in Gematria sums to 41, the 13th prime number. USA 41, 13 colonies, 13 stripes on the flag. It's been 13 years since the Steve Bartman incident. His full name in Gematria sums to 74, that special number we talked about. Lackey's also a name with 57 gematria. You know, it might sound bad, but it has the World Series gematria. World Series equals 57. We saw Prince die at age 57 this year on the 112th day of the year. I said he would probably die in February after Vanity died just before the 58th Grammys. Freemasonry number. John Lackey in gematria also sums to 104 like Jerusalem. Jerusalem has a USA right in the middle. 7/4/1776, a date with 104 numerology. That's why they made the One World Trade Center 104 stories, 1,776 feet. 1776, 17 plus 76 is 93. The Cubs clinched in their 93rd game this year, 146th game of the season. John Lackey also born on a date with 58 numerology, life lesson number. 1023's got the 33 connection like Cleveland and Indian, also like CC for Chicago Cubs. What scares me about John Lackey pitching tonight if the Cubs lose is that he began his career with Anaheim, his postseason career, the Angels in 2002 when they won the World Series. That year, the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA Finals, and that was the last time the same city won 2 pro sports championships in the same year. That was 14 years ago. The Indians had the 14-game winning streak, which I predicted would end at 14 during the time the Cavs were dominating in the NBA playoffs, playing the same teams. And what's interesting about 14 is when you write it out as a word, it sums to 41, like John Lackey, 41 the 13th prime. If Cleveland Indians win baseball, they'll be the first team in 14 years to win a pro sports championship the same year as another team from the city. You see? And John Lackey was on that team. Cubs fans, you know, I'm not trying to go against my pick if I'm making people angry. Some people get so angry when I give the alternate narratives to what I've been saying all season. But this is how it is. Sometimes, you know, I don't see the full picture. Sometimes it takes me this long to put it all together. So I'm just sharing with you as I see it. And it doesn't mean the Cubs are out yet. But these narratives are both here. And again, it brings up the point I'm making. They script these things so tightly that it almost seems they do it for leverage for gambling. You know, if there's too much money on a team, well, then they got to go the other way. You know, maybe they wanted it to go the Cubs this year, like I was reading it all season. Like the first no-hitter coming on the 112th day of the season, 46 days after Arrieta's birthday. No-hitter, 46, Chicago Cubs, Chicago. But anyway, I'm just showing you this. It's been 14 years since 2002. Could Cleveland become the first city in 14 years to win 2 pro sports championships in the same season? Or is John Lackey going to flip the script and send the Cubs, you know, even it up to 2-2, give them the motivation, the momentum to win the World Series as so many are expecting? So the opposing pitcher is Corey Kluber, who pitched Game 1, got the win. That was the game that left 67 days left in the year. Cleveland Indians 67. Corey Kluber got the perfect name for baseball, 54. Name gematria 54, just like baseball, just like Jonathan Lester, who he faced in Game 1. Kluber dominated Game 1. Will he do the same in Chicago? That's what we're waiting to see. Corey Kluber equals 135. So does Wrigley Field. And so does Josh Tomlin. Let me just show you this so you can appreciate this. You know, sometimes I see it's too little too late to have caught these things. But I'm wishing I had done the homework earlier this season and saw how all these pitcher names synced up. Josh Tomlin, Corey Kluber. Isn't that just a bizarre name? Wrigley Field. What are the odds? The 2 Indians pitchers to pitch the first 2 games away in the World Series have name gematria syncing up perfectly with Wrigley Field. So anyway, Corey Kluber on the mound tonight. He's got that birth numerology of 38 like Murphy as well. This game comes 171 days from his birthday. That's 71 stands out. Tonight, he could become 4-1 if he got the win. 4-1 against John Lackey, who equals 41. It's possible. And I'm not saying the Indians are going to win tonight. I'm just showing you. This is the narrative both ways. John Lackey equals 41 like Game 4. It's also possible Corey Kluber becomes 4-1 in the postseason in Game 4. It's amazing how tightly it is scripted. Again, Cubs fans, don't feel too bad because you'll be winning next year if you don't win it this year. You're going to have maybe you'll win even more games next year. Maybe next year you'll finish the regular season with 106 because Billy Goat equals 103. Perhaps they're trying to tell us the curse is still on. Bill Murray telling the bats to get hot, but then the bats didn't get hot. That said, last night there were 2 runners in scoring position. A base hit would have won the game for the Cubs 2-1. I thought it might happen watching. So today, Jose Fernandez headlines. Before Game 4, Fernandez had taken cocaine. What's that equal in gematria? 108. 108. 108-year curse. You know, yesterday I showed all the 108s written about in ABC. ABC did an article with about a 50 108s on the Chicago Cubs season. It's mind-blowing. And, you know, the day this guy died, I put out a video showing how it was synced up with the World Series. He died 94 days before what will be Game 7, which will be played November 2nd, which I still expect to happen. You know, right now we're going at a good rate for a Game 7. The Cubs win tonight. We'll be right on the path for Game 7. Cubs win the next 2, get up 3-2, go back to Cleveland. Cleveland wins the first one 3-3. You know, the 3-3 only seems fitting, right? Then it would go to Game 7, which would be played in Cleveland. Cubs would have to win on the road just like Cleveland did for the NBA Finals. That said, also possible that the Indians win tonight. The Indians, the last team they played in a World Series was the Marlins in 97, so the Cubs and Indians have history with the Marlins. Cleveland Indians played the Marlins in the 97 World Series. Chicago Cubs lost in the NLCS with the Steve Bartman incident to the Miami Marlins. So anyway, he died September 25th, this man, Jose Fernandez. 9 plus 25, 34. This news comes 34 days later. The word murder equals 34. The name Indians equals 34. You know, in Major League, the movie, the manager wears the number 34. It's also 4 weeks and 6 days. Chicago 46, Chicago Cubs 46, Sacrifice 46. The medical examiner truth seeker, Kenneth Hutchins. What's that name equal in gematria? 71. Isn't it amazing? Miami equals 45, like Illinois, like Cubs, like Major League, like Wrigley. 71 years since 1945. Kenneth Hutchins, the medical examiner. For those of you who don't understand how all this could be, let me again explain it. There is a network of Freemasons that are raising people from birth to fill positions within their network, from professional athletes to lawyers to politicians to possibly even, you know, undertakers and medical examiners. Freemasonry runs the medical field. They run pretty much everything. The Freemasons have built this world around us. That is a fact. This is a network that has been with this world for centuries. So you have all these Freemasons in positions selling us out, lying, doing their part to maintain false narratives. This man was likely really murdered, and now his death's being blamed on alcohol and cocaine. Remember, Prohibition ended in 33. The word alcohol equals 66. If you write out 33, it sums to 66. That's why Rolling Rock has that 33 tribute. You use your gematria skills. A lot of alcohol companies have 33 names. Here's an article from a Chicago paper about why they're rooting for the Indians' Kipnis because he's from Chicago. The end of the article talks about how he grew up in the North Side and lived next to Steve Bartman. And if you read this article, which I'll link down in the description, what the article's about is how a group of men were involved in a scheme, an illegal scheme. They got busted. Almost all of them went to prison, except for his father got off. The rest of the group, prison. The father got off, and the son ended up going to the major leagues. Again, it is a gang that rules over us. dishonest people are who dress up in these costumes and these uniforms and play for these teams. They're from dishonest families. And this is what people are giving their time and their energy to. So anyway, I think the video got away from me longer than I wanted it to be. We'll see what happens tonight. I'm playing it by ear from here. All season I've said Cubs, but perhaps I missed the major narrative with the Indians. It's been 68 years since the Indians won a World Series. Barack Obama equals 68. Barack Obama from Chicago doesn't like the Cubs. Hard to say why he'd prefer the Indians or why the riddle would go that way, but it's just a thought. The Cubs also clinched their World Series berth on a date with 68 numerology. So we'll see. Cubs win tonight. I still like the Cubs. If the Indians win tonight, could we see a 3-1 comeback again? I mean, it's possible. Unlikely, but possible. All right, until next time.